Hello everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Story to Screen podcast, the movie podcast where we review all different kinds of movies, new and old. I'm your host, Chris, and joining me tonight is the man who made me. I made him, but he made me first, Mr. Joshua Ling.
Hi, that's interesting.
Yes, in a way, you made me before I made you. And therefore, this podcast wouldn't exist without either one of us, or maybe even you.
It is alive!
Well, which, on that debate, who created who, I guess, in my opinion?
This chicken before the egg? I think you're the chicken.
Are you the hen?
I'm the egg.
You're the egg?
Egghead.
Well, how would that work, technically? Because we're both males.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, anyway, we'll skip that.
Cock-a-doodle-doo!
Exactly. Anyway, folks, tonight is the climax of our Batman v Superman specials as we wrap up this series with Batman 89, the Tim Burton 1989 classic, starring Jack Nicholson and Michael Keaton. Now, as of this recording, we are technically 4 days away from Batman v Superman opening in theaters. So, I guess I'll start off with you, Josh. Where are you kind of at now in terms of the anticipation level? Are you excited? Are you kind of neutral? Where are you kind of at now?
I'm extremely neutral. I'm one where I'm like, about certain things, and then I'm like, well, doesn't mean it's going to be terrible. Still could be fun. So, that's where I'm at.
Are you kind of, well, as of right now, a couple of reviews have come out. Nothing too elaborate as of yet, but just some kind of just simple, straight up comments, or just like, oh, it's the best comic book movie ever made, or Wonder Woman steals the show, just stuff like that, which I'm not going to lie, I'm not really buying into those first-hand reviews, because I feel like most of these like first-hand reviews that come out are really biased, I guess is the word, or they
sound like they're written by a 6-year-old with an excellent vocabulary.
Well, I get the sense that I just feel like today's kind of these people who write these reviews are kind of a little more gullible in their mindset when it comes to these type of films, and I just feel like whenever somebody comes out of a movie like this, they're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, it's so awesome!" That type of
right.
So, I'm still waiting. I'm still reserving my judgment to see if the film works or not, which I'm gonna kind of say no.
I pictured you in like a crazy white judge's wig and robe,
judging the film before it comes,
being like, Superman and Batman is guilty.
Yes. And which I'm dealing with
guilty of flagrant Eisenberg.
And then also the fact that this is a court case because it has the number 5 in it with V in the middle between Batman.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
There you go.
I do want to ask you one thing, Josh. What do you think the reaction's going to be for this film? Do you think it's going to be a very mixed reaction? I spoke to Benjamin about this last time, but what do you think the reaction to this film is going to be? I mean, just judging from, obviously we got the word of mouth that it's pretty positive, but do you kind of go off of those like reviews, or do you think it's going to be kind of a little bit less favorably received?
I think that the people who are dogging it are going to go, Well, it wasn't terrible, and then the people who really want to like it are going to like it, and then there are people who are really going to want to hate it. You know, I think it's just a thing where, as far as the reaction goes, it's going to be all over the place, regardless. But as far as as far as we can be objective about things, objective quality of the film, I think it will look pretty. I think it will have good acting. I think that the writing will be mediocre. And I think that the use of very iconic heroes will have sporadic meaning, like good, solid meaning, but it will be sporadic and light. You know, we won't be able to delve in deep to who these characters really are
until the second film or Justice League or whatever it is that they're gonna, you know, whatever they're gonna do.
Sure, because we're really actually going to pay attention to our characters then. Really, guys, we are.
I don't know. And funny thing about Justice League, they're about to start filming next month. Like, that's how deep or how much they've escalating, you know, just the this new breed of, you know,
well,
DC.
This is going to make money.
How much do you think this... Okay, here's something
that's
funny.
There's no doubt this movie is going to make money.
Here's the funny thing. It's this latest mentality of the studios where it's like, you know, they have so many high, ridiculous expectations for these films. Like, what is it? Some person from Warner Brothers came out and said, like, if this movie makes anything under $1 billion, like, even if it's 800 million or 900 million, it's going to be a disappointment. Yeah, like, in order for it to be successful,
I don't know.
It's got to make $1 billion.
I know it's going to do amazing domestically.
I think it has a shot of 800 million. I mean, is that too far off?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think internationally it's going to do better than a lot of the Marvel movies have. Because, I mean, there are kids in Thailand named Batman and Superman. No joke. Like, they take that as seriously as their own mythologies and things. I just don't know. Like, I have no point of reference for even guesstimating.
Yeah. Well, one last thing, because I think I do want to kind of, you know, begin the review for Batman, but I do want to ask you, if you were to kind of guess the Rotten Tomatoes score, like, what do you think the lowest it's going to be, and what do you think it's the highest score that it could have?
Okay. I said that the lowest is going to be 35%, I think, and I think the highest is through the roof. It could be up to 100%.
Really? Okay. See, to me, I'm thinking 50%, like the lowest
But that's
score.
like a freak case.
Yeah. 30, I would actually be kind of pleasantly surprised if it got to 30. I mean, it wouldn't be like completely unexpected, just given the nature of Zack Snyder's body of work. But I think 50%, somewhere in the 50% range, it's going to be the lowest, maybe even a little lower. And I think the highest could be a generous 78. So those are my predictions right there, and we'll see if those predictions are true when we do our Batman v Superman review, which we have no idea when we're going to be doing. But we'll see what happens. But anyway, one more thing. A lot of you people have been wanting to know if we're going to be able to have time to do our Man of Steel commentary, and just due to scheduling conflicts and everyone's schedule here on this show, we're not going to be able to do that in time. To be kind of honest, we're very lucky that we're doing this Batman '89 review, because, you know, we just didn't know if it was going to work out or not. But you know, I think if we're going to end this specials, I think this is probably the more appropriate film to do it with. I think, you know. we'll try to do a Man of Steel commentary in the future, but as of right now, it's not going to happen. So, unfortunately. So why don't we go ahead and start our review for Batman?
Vicky Vale.
Bruce Wayne.
And what do you do for a living?
Lieutenant, is there a 6-foot bat in Gotham City?
Nice outfit.
You look fine.
I didn't ask. I have given a name to my pain.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
Where did you get those wonderful toys?
My life is really complex.
Winged freak terrorizes. Wait till they get a load of me.
What you just heard was the trailer for Batman. It was directed by Tim Burton and stars Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson. So, now, this film right here has been highly beloved by a lot of fans, both of the genre and fans of the character. I will not deny that I think it has a place in the pantheon of superhero movies, if not the Batman character specifically. And I do think if it wasn't for this film, I don't think you would have a lot of the latest. I don't think you would have Batman, the animated series, without this film. To some degree, I would say. But I was going to ask you, Joshua, what's been your relationship with Batman '89?
Well, I was in the womb when it came out.
Same here.
It's a movie where I didn't get to see it so much later, mainly because my parents were not into the darkness that was Batman. They were more into the Adam West era that they grew up with. I did enjoy it when I saw it, but I didn't think it was great. There's a certain amount of campiness that stays over from the Adam West era. There's a certain amount of Tim Burton-y-ness, which I can't really describe. Tim Burton is a lot more visuals over substance, I find. But what is there is very, very good, and a lot of what is there is the acting from Jack Nicholson and Michael Keaton. I really enjoy their chemistry. I really enjoy just the fun back and forth that they have, and a lot of it reminds me of a slightly later into the 90s movie, The Mask. I find it has a lot of connections to just the general caricatured New York kind of vibe, with fedoras and cigars and gangsters and very, Roger Rabbit around that time too. There was a very New York caricature going on.
That's funny. You would compare this to The Mask.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, specifically the caricature of New York gangsters. From a 20s kind of period.
Yeah. I would say more so like the 1930s, like old Warner Brothers gangster films are kind of here, you know, especially like the Maltese Falcon or Casablanca or The Public Enemy, you know, those type of early gangster films. I think you can kind of see a lot of those elements, or that noirish gangster element in Batman. Anyway, my relationship with this movie, I recall watching it on TV many years ago, when I think it was like during like the late 90s, and I think it was because the Batman and Robin was about to come out, so they had a marathon of this film and the other three films, and you know, in honor of the theatrical release of Batman and Robin, which I've only seen that movie once, and I never want to go back to that movie ever again. It's funny watching that film and seeing where it came from this film, and flawed and all, Batman '89 may be. It honestly makes me even sad when I look at a film like Batman and Robin, just to see how easily it was destroyed.
Oh, Joel Schumacher.
But anyway, but no, this film, I kind of liked it a lot when I was a little kid, and I watched it a couple times, and then it was Superman the movie. You know, when I spoke about Superman the movie last time, was kind of like my first big exposure to the Superman character. This was kind of my secondary kind of well, at least this was my first live action exposure to Batman, more so than the Adam West TV show or something like that. But you know, Batman the animated series was kind of my first major exposure to the character. Here, I do find it interesting that as much as this movie has been so beloved by people and by the fans of Batman, I do find it, when I was watching it just in honor for this review, I was pleasantly surprised to find how much this movie doesn't hold up, like, at all. Some continuity issues, the special effects, albeit a joy to watch. You know, I think it's kind of like at that level of Ray, what's his name again? The guy, the Jason and the Argonauts. What was that?
Is it Harryhausen?
Yeah, something like that. You know, it's that type of special effect. It's like, oh, you know, it's so cool to watch, but the effects really don't hold up by today's standards. But it's still a lot of fun to watch. But yeah, the thing that's, I guess I'm trying to figure out, what is it about this film that has made it endure as long as it has, and even to this day. You know, I guess that's my first question to you, Joshua. Why do you think this movie has endured so long, and why it's so beloved by the fans?
Honestly, at the first, I do believe that this was the first, besides, you know, you could say the Superman movies or whatever, but this was the first non-Superman really good superhero movie in many ways. I think this is the one a lot of people point to as their first superhero movie that made them go, oh, cool, you know, in that kind of dark, brooding, Batman-y kind of way. I think it paves the way. You can definitely see for not only its sequels, but also for the introduction of Spider-Man much later on with Sam Raimi. It kind of set a tone for superhero movies going forward, for better and for worse. You know, we got things a little later like Alec Baldwin in The Shadow, which was pretty terrible. We got things like Spawn in the 90s, you know, we got all these other sorts of heroes that weren't so, you know, specifically, golly gee, I'm Superman, you know, kind of thing. We got a little bit more of that darker hero. And I think both styles really came together in Spider-Man later on, but I think that this was a first in many ways artistically to take a superhero and make him something other than look up in the sky, you know.
Yeah, this is like the first one outside of Superman that showed that you can kind of take the property seriously. Well, here's the thing. I'm kind of tripping on my words there because I look at this film and aesthetically I see dark. You know, it's a very dark, you know, setting, you know.
Tim Burton.
Yeah, but it's still, the plot in some ways is very campy.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's still in that vein. And I was listening to a podcast earlier today, and they were talking about, you know, the difference between, you know, dark in the terms of, you know, dark in terms of just the look of it, you know, and turning off the lights and thematically.
Sure.
You know, content-wise, you know, this movie, I mean, it has some dark moments. I mean, like the moment where Bruce Wayne's parents are killed in that flashback. I mean, I think that's probably the darkest that the movie goes. Unless you want to consider the scene where Vicky Vale gets drunk and she and Bruce Wayne hit the sack, but you know that's neither here nor there. This is a movie that's still trapped in the vein of Batman 60s, the 60s show.
Oh, for sure. I couldn't completely get away from that because nothing else had, you know, like there was no other touchstone before that. Batman had been evolving in the comics, but the comics weren't something that was widely read, so they had to at least pay homage to the only Batman that most people knew, which was the 66 Batman.
But do you
60s Batman.
Yeah, but I guess my question is it because that's all they know? Well, I can't say that's what Burton and the writers only knew, because at this point in time, what was it? You had The Killing Joke and Dark Knight Returns, you know, stories that, in my opinion, are far more darker than what what Batman '89 actually does. You know,
for sure.
Yeah, you look at The Killing Joke. I mean, there's a lot more darker substance there, with, you know, Gordon being manipulated in a very shameful way.
But keep in mind, who are the studios playing to in 1989 with the superhero movies? The only superheroes that have been live on screen, the only ones that people took quote-unquote seriously, were the ones that they could show their kids. They didn't go... Adults at that time were not into comic books. It's not like today where we have anyone and everyone's into comic books and comic book characters and comic book movies. Back then, it was like kid stuff. It was looked down on as kid stuff. Even though, at the time, the comics industry was changing and trying to make things more appealing to an adult audience.
Yeah. But, I guess that's kind of where my problems lie with this film, because you have a way over the top plot that honestly is not very cohesive with with, you know, in terms of the Joker's. I look at the Joker's motivations, and exactly what are his motivations? You just, I guess you could say it's kind of a looser version of anarchy, I guess. Like, he wants to cause chaos, but the way that he goes about it, you know, he wants to establish himself as the first homicidal artist, which that doesn't play at anything at all in this movie, except if you want to consider the whole shampoo and makeup stuff. But still, there's still no really end goal. And then he, at the very end, you know, he's giving Gotham free money, but where's the consistency there with the motivation?
I think my question though would be, is Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight any better as far as like his actual plan? Both of them have very abstract plans. All versions of Joker that I've seen have very abstract plans because they're more focused on the journey as opposed to the destination. They're more focused on enjoying themselves on the way to wherever they're going than, actually wherever they're going.
I would say more so the Heath Ledger Joker, at least you got us. I mean, I think you had to kind of, when you're watching for the first time, you're trying to figure out where is it going. But then when you stand back and look at it as a whole, it kind of makes sense as a whole. Here, you look at Jack Nicholson, and you forget to be here's the funny part, you kind of forget about the whole Joker thing being consistent, with the whole Joker plot being consistent with each other, and then you're just taken in by this larger-than-life performance. I guess that's the distracting part about it. It's like, okay, you got this great actor portraying this, iconic, iconic comic book villain, but he, the villain's motivation is not really, connecting at all. Did you find that distracting though, or in a good way or in a bad way, the Jack Nicholson performance?
I found it enjoyable in the same way that pretty much any Tim Curry role is, in that they're just chewing the scenery and having fun, and they're very magnetic, and you don't need so much of a motivation other than they're crazy. I don't think it's nuanced, no, but I don't think the film calls for that either. I think it calls for a very black and white mustache twirly villain. That's, I'm evil because I'm evil. Yeah. So I think, Jack Nicholson can do way better, for sure. But he was called upon to play evil for evil's sake, and I think he did a good job. Yeah.
I mean, I guess we'll talk a little bit about Jack Nicholson as the Joker. I've seen a lot of Jack Nicholson movies throughout my time, and I've seen Departed and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and this movie and so many others. But the thing that he's definitely just chewing the scenery. And here's the thing with Nicholson as well. When watching his other earlier work, like prior to this, and even the stuff that he's done afterwards, he's just this eccentric personality that's just larger than life.
Mm-hmm.
You even watch a movie like The Shining, and he's just out there. He's just doing his thing, and he's got that funny kind of weirdo personality. Just that weird grin that he has. That's just so much a part of him, and that kind of smoky kind of voice that he has. It's wonderful. I mean, I really enjoy his performance in this movie a lot, but again, it's just I find it just so distracting, and he just hijacks the movie so much. He's hijacking the title character's own movie away from Batman.
Well, yeah.
But again, it's not dark, and a lot of people, like even the fans, they always kind of pointed to The Shining, which is a movie you've seen, right, Joshua?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And a lot of fans seem to, or at least before he was officially cast, fans would really point out to The Shining and say, like, that's how he should play the Joker, or how he should have played the Joker. Would you have liked to have seen the Jack Nicholson from The Shining in this film?
Yes and no. I'd like to see some more of the nuance and some more of the depravity that was portrayed in The Shining. But I also think that there should be a certain amount of eccentric joy in the Joker, every incarnation. I kind of, with the Joker, he's such an iconic character in general that if you don't hit just the right level for me, you're a good performance, but you're not a great performance. There's been very few I've ever seen. I'll throw this out for anyone who loves the Joker, who wants to see something good. Check out the Joker blogs. They are amazing. the guy who does them, has a very similar to Heath Ledger style, very, very similar. But I honestly think that he hits more of the comedy than Heath. And there's a really thin line that he walks. So.
But, yeah. Do you have a favorite Jack Nicholson film, by any chance?
You know, the three performances I always think of him in are A Few Good Men As You Can't Handle the Truth, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's
A
great.
Few Good Men, this movie about Batman, actually, as the Joker, and The Shining. Those three, to me, are definitive Jack Nicholson roles for me. I think in each of those, he gives completely different performances that are very nuanced, but very, very forceful. He is a force on the screen. You can't help but look away from, or you cannot look away from him.
No.
That's what I'm trying to say. He grabs you and takes you into the story with him, and you're on board. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a testament to his talent as an actor and why he's been, such a beloved icon and just in cinema in general. So
there's very few like him that I've ever seen that can accurately depict, in my mind, mania. There's him, and the only other one that's immediately coming to mind is Tim Curry.
Mm-hmm.
There are very few like that I've seen that can really just show you absolute crazy mania in their eyes and express that in their body.
Now, do you think in a way he deliberately hijacks the movie, or do you think it's just the way that the character is written? Because a lot of people have been debating as to whether or not the script that we see is like the final script that was approved, or if it was a contribution of notes from, a variety of outlets, the studio, the actors on set, Tim Burton bringing in his ideas, because you look at this film, it is not a very consistent film.
Right.
In a lot of ways. But do you feel like Nicholson hijacks the film deliberately, or is it just?
I think that there were definitely moments where he was just sick and tired of being in makeup under lights all day, and just went off the walls, and they kept some of those takes. I think that he literally just said, "I am a clown. I need to have fun." And he just went crazy and had fun. Is that hijacking on purpose? I don't think so. I think it's more just he realized the silliness of what he was doing and said, "I'm just going to have fun with this."
Yeah. But that's the question, I guess, because the property, he's having so much fun with this that he's not taking, I don't know if I would say he's taking the role seriously or the material. Because I look at this script, it's all over the place. There's not with the exception of just the Joker hijacking the film, there's not really a centralized theme, or even Batman himself doesn't really have. I think he has an arc.
Yeah, he has an arc, but
yeah, it's just kind of secondary, because I don't think you really get a sense of who Bruce Wayne is and his motivations until the second act, when everything has begun to kind of calm down.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when you have the revelation that Jack Napier was the one that killed his parents, which I actually like that twist. Actually, I'm probably
sure. Yeah, I mean that's something that they've done in the comics before. I tend toward liking the more realistic, that guy was just a nobody that, didn't even necessarily get away. Bruce can never have revenge on him, but for this movie, this really worked, I really did like the personal battle between this Joker and this Batman. I think that the one thing that a lot of people point out, and I just feel like I have to point out in this case, and I think it's more highlighted in this version of Batman and Joker than any other I've seen, any other version. The bright, flamboyant craziness of the Joker, which would normally be considered as the light, versus the darkness, which is actually the good guy side on this side. It's really an interesting just thought process of flipping not good and evil, but light and dark to represent good and evil in different ways.
So you're saying like the Joker is the lighter side because in terms of his mannerisms and the Batman,
right?
Because you expect it, because it's all, you remember that old like motif. It's like with heroes they always wear white, and the and the bad guys they always wear black. But here it's kind of more so hinged on the personality types.
Right,
and
exactly. And I think that
that's a good point.
Contrast is shown really, really well in this movie. That is something that this particular movie does exceptionally well. Is the idea of the Joker, humor tends to be thought of as a good thing,
And then the Batman.
Seriousness and darkness and brooding tends to be considered bad, but in this case it's not,
Yeah, and I've always liked this. I've always liked the idea of, the whole like I made you, you made thing duality with the Batman and the Joker in this one. Would you say that whole thing that which we've kind of seen in the Dark Knight and even to some degree the animated series? Do you think that kind of stems a lot more from here, or do you think that's always been there since like Bob Kane? Since he created the character in the 30s?
I don't think it existed at first. I think they noticed that there was something very electric between a character who legitimately has brooding and sadness and depression issues and a character who's just manic. It's really interesting because if you actually look on as far down deep as you can with Batman, he really truly is a light side. He is a crusader. He is someone who is trying to bring light to the world so that there doesn't have to be darkness. So he goes into the darkness in the guise of darkness. And then you have the Joker, who really is terrible, terrible on the inside, depraved, and goes out and tries to basically enact chaos that he finds entertaining sadistically on the world. Like it's a juxtaposition that it doesn't make any sense on paper immediately. There's nothing between bats and clowns in any form of mythology or literature, but it really does echo seriousness versus humor. It echoes depression versus happiness. In a way that is unexpected. And of course, I've mentioned this many times with Batman. You go back to the Shadow and you go back to Zorro. There is something that has been around, an archetype that goes back in the mythology of the dark hero.
Yeah.
And that is something that a lot of people, I think, especially during this particular Batman's time, had gotten away from. People had forgotten about the dark hero, the tragic hero.
You didn't have that with Superman. You didn't have that with this in the first two Superman movies.
Right, yeah. I mean, you have a little bit of that, but like the dark, tragic hero, the one who literally the only thing that he fights for at this point is other people's hope instead of his own.
Yeah.
There was very little of that in the Superman. There's a little bit, but it's not as extreme.
The Krypton, I mean, like him just trying to find his place is probably the only emotional beat that's in the film. Maybe and also his relationship with Lois Lane, but that's another conversation for that review. But anyway, We've been talking a little bit about Batman and the psychology of Batman. Let's talk a little bit about Michael Keaton's Batman. It's so weird watching this film and then watching the Christian Bale Batman. I love Christian Bale. And it's kind of a little bit of a treat to go back and watch, this interpretation when, you didn't have any of that stuff. You didn't have the animated series. Michael, I don't consider him the definitive Batman.
No.
But I do find the characteristics of this Batman to have some definitive qualities. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Like, there's, the psychology that we were kind of talking about a little earlier, about him fighting for the in the hope of him fighting for the hope of others and not his own. The voice,
Mm-hmm.
This is a time before we had the
I think, honestly, except for, is it Kevin Conrad? I forget his
Kevin
first
Conroy.
name. Yeah. Except for him, I think that this is the closest live action we get to a definitive Batman voice. I love Michael Keaton's both Batman and Bruce Wayne voices. I think they blend perfectly. I think they're different enough that you can't really tell one is the other. But I think that they really, that it's not over the top, where is he? So much. It's very, but it's still very intimidating. It's very understated in many ways. And Bruce Wayne, he shows a range of quiet and brooding Bruce Wayne, like the personal who Bruce Wayne really is, and the businessman, the suave, swank businessman. He goes all up and down the spectrum in this movie.
Yeah. I actually do like his Bruce Wayne, especially like at the beginning, like during the party scene and like, especially with Vicky Vale or even heck Knox, when he's talking to Knox, he's just so, he's like stumbling in his words and he's like, oh yeah, right. Yeah. The Batman, thing, he's, I don't know if that's just part of the person he's trying to convey the false image of Bruce Wayne, like an insecure Batman or an insecure individual. I don't know if that's just if that's the game or if that's just really him,
Right.
And the Bruce Wayne, I loved his, actually in Batman Returns, there's actually I actually like the Bruce Wayne in that one a little bit more because you get to see the business side. But, his Batman, it's pretty admirable. I mean, the stuff that he does with the voice and even the stuff that he does in the suit, it's pretty good. And, here's the weird thing though. Michael Keaton is not that buff of a dude.
No, he's not.
But he handles the physicality of Batman, I thought, pretty well. Was there anything
Now,
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, physicality of Batman, the only thing I didn't like was the costume decision to have a static cowl, meaning, like, it doesn't move at the neck.
I know.
That drives me nuts. Him moving around to look at things and whatever else. I just think it reminds me of Bible Man from back in the day. It just looks bad.
That's funny you should mention that. Bible Man. Whatever happened to Willie Ames? But anyway.
Classic.
Oh man, no, that's funny. No, yeah, that's the funny thing about about that. And even to some degree, the Dark Knight movies kind of make fun of that trope a little bit. But here's the weird thing: watching Batman in this movie, he doesn't really have an arc. I mean, there's an arc in terms of him and Vicky Vale with like whether or not, choosing a normal life, if they're capable of loving each other during the midst of all this, craziness. Which the
arc is almost a revenge arc with Jack.
Sure, yeah, but even then, that doesn't come until the second act. Here,
Well, sure, but yeah.
he's just he's trying to investigate what's going on. He doesn't know who this guy is until he says, he tells him straight up, what's the line that he says? Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale of moonlight? That's when he finally figures out who this guy really is. But yeah, I don't. His arc with Vicky Vale, which Kim Basinger, this woman just screams. Watching the movie, it was just shocked me of how much she was screaming throughout the film. Especially like during like the chase scenes and all that stuff. I'm like, wow, this woman must have gotten like a lot of throat lozenges just to keep her throat going for all these screams. But yeah, I could be wrong, but is there a better like arc in this film that I'm just in Bruce Wayne's story here? Because I'm just not seeing it. At least in terms of
like I said, I do think the arc is the revenge arc. You say it doesn't start till the second act, and that's fairly true, but we get the flashback, and that's part of where it actually starts. When he becomes Batman and is investigating and doing all these sorts of things, he's actually doing this because he doesn't want what happened to his parents to happen to anyone else. So now he actually has the ability to take down this person who caused this terrible thing to happen, and he takes advantage of it. That's the arc. In the same way you could say Peter Parker's arc, if you're considering it the same way you're considering Batman, doesn't start until the second act. Yeah. He's just dealing with getting spider powers in the first act, that's still an arc,
Do you feel... How do you feel about the whole, like, revenge arc? Because this Batman kills.
Yeah, totally.
Have you ever had a problem with that? I've never had a problem with the Batman character having to kill.
Yep.
Because,
problem.
It's never been murder. Well, debatably. Unless you call the whole, like, thing with him sticking the grenades in one guy's pants, but...
Okay, let's be honest here. As far as this Batman goes, completely justified. This guy is essentially causing riots in the city. He needs to be taken down by police or citizens. This is not even vigilantism. This is just straight civic duty, Jack Joker Man needs to be taken down, period. That's just the fact,
Here's the weird thing, though. He tries to shoot him down with his bat plane. He can't even shoot him in the forehead. Come on.
He has some Stormtrooper blood.
Yeah. The Stormtrooper blood. That's awesome. That's awesome. Why can't I shoot these guys? The Ewoks are kicking our butt.
By the way, Joker's giant gun. Yes, please. That's hilarious.
I love
it.
Awesome. Dude, I remember that image so well in my mind, just watching... that image is just so awesome. Just him pulling the gun out of his pants and all that.
And it's so perfect for a Joker character moment. Just like, of course the Joker would have something goofy and silly like that,
Yeah. Do you, we were kind of talking about the look of the film. Do you think, had it not been for this film, you wouldn't have Batman the Animated Series?
Yes, definitely.
And maybe just the film, just in total, characters and everything, the story. I don't think you would have Batman the Animated Series.
I agree.
And
completely.
Do you think that goes for the Dark Knight trilogy as well?
Oh, absolutely. You would not have Dark Knight trilogy without this one. And more importantly, I think Batman Returns.
Yes, I would agree.
I think that they proved that you could go this dark with a superhero and still have something amazing and marketable to the mass audiences.
We're going to go ahead and wrap it up just a little bit right here. I do want to ask you one more thing. Do you think this film has held up in the as time has gone on? I don't think it's held up as strongly as it should, but do you think it's held up?
I think it's held up in that it is in the same way that films. Let me give an example. Obviously, I'm kind of the Disney guy on this podcast. I'm a huge Disney, especially animation fan. There's a certain group of films before the Disney Renaissance finally hits that kind of starts with The Rescuers and moves into things like The Great Mouse Detective and Oliver and Company. And while these are not great movies, you can definitely see the transition from something lesser and not so great to something much, much, much greater than anyone could possibly imagine. And I think that you can see a progression, for if you go Superman, Christopher Reeve movies to this one and into the Joel Schumacher era, which was definitely a degradation. And then into Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi films, and then finally into our Marvel Cinematic Universe we know and love today. You can see a progression of Hollywood learning how to make comic book movies and how to take them seriously.
Okay. And
I think that Batman was the stepping stone between Superman and Spider-Man to really up the ante on what could be done in a superhero movie. And for that, I think it holds up as a stepping stone.
Yeah. I do want to ask you about the soundtrack because there's you got the orchestral score by Danny Elfman, the classic Batman theme, which even to this day I think is, the quite essential Batman theme.
Definitely.
It's funny. I was watching Batman the Animated Series, some episodes, and the theme on that show is basically the same thing as this one right here.
Yes, it is. Definitely.
Maybe some.
It's Danny Elfman.
Yeah, the notes are maybe some differences in the notes and all that stuff.
Not much, though.
Not much at all. It's still basically the same thing, which a lot of people have kind of debated as to whether or not this is in the same universe. The animated show is in the same universe as Batman, 89, which I don't think it is, but what was the Prince soundtrack? Does any of the Prince music in this film stand out to you?
Wasn't he artist formerly known as back then?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember either. I was in the womb, like I said. Yeah, none of it really sticks out to me as memorable. I love Prince as a musician, I really do, but he was still in such a pop phase. He's much more of a hipstery kind of, oh yeah, Prince, he's a great musician. I really like his stuff, because he really is an excellent musician. Mm-hmm. But he was still in the pop scene, and not particularly memorable, because it was part of the times, I think, honestly, the only pop song related to Batman that sticks out to me anymore, period, is Kiss from a Rose.
Is that from Batman Forever?
I don't remember.
Okay.
It was either that or Batman and Robin, and I cannot remember.
Wow. But,
it might have been Returns. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's funny because I was watching the whole, museum set piece.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just funny seeing Jack Nicholson and his, group of hoodlums and Bob the Goon.
You are my number one
guy. And then they're just dancing to the music. It's one of those just really just jarringly, I wouldn't say it fits the film, but you can definitely see where kind of Sam Raimi was kind of inspired to kind of take in those silly moments. That's what I was thinking of.
Yes.
But yeah, what was another thing too I was going to point out? Oh, Bob the Goon. He
First of all, great name.
Great name. But I don't get the love. He's a cool guy. He's really cool and maybe like a Phil Coulson level type of character, but I've never really quite understood the huge fan favoritism with Bob the Goon.
You got me, Chris. I don't know.
I don't know either. How sad are you that we never got a chance to see Billy D. Williams, Harvey Dent / Two-Face?
I don't know. Maybe a little bit. I mean, it would have been interesting to see, but I'm not like heartbroken.
A lot of people, there was a lot of people. I don't recall like a lot of people when I've looked up in the message boards. A lot of people. I don't see a lot of people criticizing this choice. You know, Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent.
Nah, he was fine.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't really serve that much of a purpose, other than just debatably be set up for sequel bait.
I'm the charming district attorney, little lady. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Welcome, Batman. I'm the administrator of this city.
I'm Lando Calrissian. You can trust me.
Oh, man. Well, is there anything else with this film you wanted to bring up before we wrap up?
This is one of my favorite Tim Burton movies because I generally dislike Tim Burton.
I like Sleepy Hollow. I like Sleepy Hollow, so.
Yeah, there's a few. But generally I find Tim Burton to be incredibly overrated as a storyteller, not necessarily as a visual artist. He's a great visual artist. But as a storyteller, I think he's very lacking.
Yes,
I
very
think
much
that
so.
this movie, he got a little bit of help from his friends. And
debatably, I would say not a whole lot, but you know.
Right, but he also definitely, I think, was able to find a personal connection to the characters and to deliver an iconic story. So, you know, props to him. So this, to me, is one of my favorite Tim Burton movies. I'm not a huge fan of Tim Burton, so that was the only other thing that I could think of.
I like Sleepy Hollow.
Mm-hmm.
I've yet to see Ed Wood and what's that? Big Fish, because I've heard those are actually his best.
Right.
Those two right there. Have you seen any of those?
I've not seen either of those. I've seen bits and pieces of Ed Wood, but I've not seen the whole thing. The one in particular that everyone always talks about, well, any of his more recent films, I just kind of cringe.
Yeah, his
Charlie
more recent stuff has been kind of...
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is horrendous. The Alice in Wonderland ones, you know, as much as my girl really likes them and stuff, and there's a few good things in them, like performance-wise and a few other things, I think they're generally way overrated, and I find the Nightmare Before Christmas to be an incredibly overrated film, and I know a lot of people are going to hate me for that.
I have not seen A Nightmare Before Christmas in like 10 years, so I can't...
Yeah.
I do recall enjoying it, but I need to check that one out. Apparently he didn't direct that one. That he was an executive producer on that one, but still, it's still a huge Tim Burton touch.
When you think of Tim Burton, you think of Nightmare Before Christmas. Just like you think of Walt Disney, you think of Mickey Mouse. You know
exactly.
what I mean?
Exactly.
That's just a thing.
Yeah. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. But before we go, I actually want to see if the critic reviews have gone on yet for Batman v Superman.
This is the sound of me rubbing my hands together, waiting for the goodies.
Nothing. But my big fat Greek wedding has gotten a 40% on there.
Which, by the way, the first movie is good. As far as chick flicks go, it is an excellent chick flick.
I have not seen it. Okay, actually...
You should see the first one.
I will. Big question now. So we got Batman v Superman coming out this weekend, but Christopher Reeve, Superman 78 versus Batman 89. So who would win?
I'm a Batman 89 fan.
Okay. I would say Superman 78 for me. So there you go. Better plot, better story, and wonderful performance by Christopher Reeve. But I wouldn't have mind seeing. I wouldn't have mind seeing Keaton and Reeve going at each other. Actually, True or false? I'm going to test you on this one. True or false? Did Michael Keaton and Christopher Reeve work with each other?
Ooh. Just because you brought it up, I'm gonna say true.
Yes, it's true. I can't remember the name of the movie. Off the top of my head, I do know
that's cheap of you, but okay.
I just know because I found out the other day about.
You just know these things, Chris. You just know them.
Let me look it up real quickly. What was the name? Oh, Speechless. That's what it was.
Okay.
Speechless. I heard it was
That's
huge.
a Stephen Curtis Chapman song too.
Yes, good song
I'm
too.
Speechless. Sorry, I had to get my Christian bookstore from the '90s quota in. We got Bible Man and Stephen Curtis Chapman.
There you go. No, good for
So.
you. Good for you. Maybe we'll save some people with the mentioning of those two things.
Yes, exactly. It's Christian. That's for you, Kevin.
Okay. Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up, folks. Thank you for joining us on Story to Screen. You can find us on Facebook and on iTunes and on Twitter. Please join us very soon for our Batman v Superman review, which will be happening very soon. We just still haven't worked out the dates yet. But anyway, Josh, where can people find more of your work?
You can check out my stories and things over at rhymeandspace.com. I'm actually doing a lot more videos on my YouTube channel, Joshua David Ling. Just put that in the search bar on YouTube. We're starting to tell the stories and put some cool background music behind them.
All right, then. Thank you. Folks, you can join us again next week, and we'll catch you next time. Cheers.
Ow!